Um, the I just want to point out that about 8 minutes into watching the movie, I went on Mastodon and posted um I'm writing down Chekhov's dogs and putting it in an envelope and mailing it to myself. Like they had to have a special dog shaped hook on the wall that they could put all of these Chekhov's dogs on, because I knew from the moment that we
Yeah.
saw them the first time, I was like, oh, he's getting mauled to death by the dogs.
Uh-huh.
Like,
I love the fact that in the soundtrack you kept hearing him in the background all the time.
The
They're always
dogs.
they're barking or
Yeah,
baying.
even one of the victims comments on it.
Yeah, it was really something. It was like, this film, I'm going to, again, I haven't watched it since I watched it the first time about 11 years ago. And I watched it again, and I'm impressed by how tight this is. It's like, there's not a lot of slack in this film. It's very much like a modern, like, horror film. It doesn't have any side stories. It doesn't have anything.
No, on
No,
that level,
it just goes from beginning to end, and it brings you the horror at a regular basis. There's like, well, if you cutting the girl's face off in the second act,
Yeah.
it's like,
I
there's
have a difficult time calling this a horror movie. Like,
That's
this is
pretty much what it is. It's
In the time it came out, it must have been
sure,
shocking.
but even then, he specifically went light on horror elements in it. Like, he specifically cut a lot of blood out of it. He didn't include animal torture, which is in the book.
Yeah, true.
Like,
Because the Brits would have gone, censors would have got them.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the
You can kill people, but not pets.
yeah, and you can't have nunchucks. So
Yeah.
This still reads much more to me as a thriller than a horror movie.
Okay,
Like,
that's reasonable.
Mildly creepy.
yeah, it's creepy. It's
creepy.
somewhat violent, but not particularly. It doesn't have it. I mean, it's a horror movie in the classic sense. Like, you can very much see the DNA going back to something like Nosferatu or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or something like that.
George
Like,
Franju was a big fan of Hammer, and that's the influence here. Hammer films were very popular in France in the 50s, and this is basically a French Hammer film.
yeah, I mean, the whole point was he was trying to make a French horror scene, which he did. I mean, it took a while, but he did.
He did, and it was.
Although the guy who made Cat People beat him to it, I think, but he did that in America.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought it was, in terms of how it was put together, I thought it had a nice, almost modern feel to it in terms of it kind of moved quickly. 90 minutes. Now, is it 95 or 90 minutes?
It's 90 or something.
It doesn't suffer from old movie plot lethargy.
No, it doesn't. I'm thinking about
but the pacing is very
yeah.
Elevator to the Gallows.
90-minute movie with not much going on. It's very deliberately paced.
Yeah.
Which
I'm thinking about Elevator to the Gallows. It came out the year before this. It's like that
has too many side things.
It's too many. It's like it's all these little side things and stops and like that. There's one moment that I pointed out in my previous writing about this. I loved when you're burying that Martine or whatever, that nice girl who got her face cut off.
Yeah,
at the window. They're burying her, and then Edna, yeah, and then they were burying her, and then the what's her name? Heard that Paulette, I guess, is the name, but I can't know the assistant, the one with the terrible music. Heard a sound. She looked up, and it was just a plane just flying overhead, the lights blinking on. What a moment! It's like this is, they're obsessed with this kind of this terrible situation, but there's also a whole world out there. I'm sure that reflected in that moment that probably this person just wanted to get away. Just didn't want to do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's like an interesting emotional moment.
Yeah, it feels like a lived-in world, which is nice because a lot of horror movies don't.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of horror movies feel like they only exist in the world where this violence is being done, and there's nothing outside of that box.
Yep.
This does definitely feel like, oh yeah, I can totally see this guy working at the hospital he works at. I can totally see this guy going to the store. These people have internal lives that exist outside of the plot, which is again, a nice thing for a horror movie. Like that we've lost that in a lot of horror. We're getting it back now, but even like if you look at something like Saint Maud, I don't feel like those characters exist outside.
No,
of
it was really stilted.
Yeah,
and, that film. Oh God, what was it about that girl with that face in the back of her head? Malignant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is stupid, but some of it was actually quite realistic. I thought it was kind of like they tried to strive to show people a normal kind of life. And I was going to talk about casting her in the dog.
She's so very good,
but tall and this swan neck and this thin, and that picture of her you saw on the wall earlier,
which is great.
Was a neat indication of like, yeah, she lost a lot. She was definitely a classical beauty that lost everything. And
that the mask she wears is pliant, right?
She can, at the end, she's
reacting towards
a little.
Yeah.
And it actually moves. The mask is hugging her face there.
Right. Although they dubbed her because he didn't sound too muffled when she was talking with the mask on.
Oh, I'm sure it was,
exactly right. But I thought it was pretty interesting in terms of that it feels like a more modern film. I thought it was kind of a nice little breakthrough. And like I said, Georges Franju, the guy started the freaking Cinematheque. He's like,
yeah, he and Langlois made a movie together.
I know. This is like almost like slumming for him. This guy is like pretty much high culture in terms of French cinema.
Well, he made a bunch of documentaries, right? Before this.
Right. I'd like to see those too, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting though, you mentioned like, oh, she lost so much, the funny thing is you're looking at her the same way her father did. Because I don't get the feeling from her that she feels like she's lost anywhere near as much as he feels she's lost.
Right.
And I understand some of that's guilt because the car accident was his fault.
Right.
But like the way that she doesn't want to wear the mask, the way that she doesn't want to participate in any of this says to me, I have come to some sort of acceptance that this is who I am in my life. And he will not let me go. And until she fucking kills him, he won't. He's never going to let her go. Even if he does fix her face, he's still going to keep her there. Like she's still going to be his experiment for the rest of time. Like the character does have a very good and direct motivation and also has a really tragic life up until the very end of the movie,
right? And the end is just nuts. It's
that redeemed the movie for me.
Yeah,
the last 7 minutes.
She just fucking stabs the assistant.
I know, just behind Scott.
Yeah, that's it. Just stabs the hell out of her right there,
and it just walks through, lets all the
dogs loose,
lets the doves out, has the dove in her hand.
I know. It's like, well, the irony klaxon, like I said, it was going off like crazy at the end of the
this bit.
Yeah.
But
I do like that they were using like a blower to make her hair move like the doves were making it move.
Yeah. It was good stuff. And it's like, she's kind of like this delicate little dove, I guess. And oh, here comes Jared.
So I hadn't seen this. This one had been on my list for a really long time. Been wanting to pick it.
Sorry, I'm late. You hadn't seen it before?
No, I'd never seen it before. And
wow. I want to hear your impressions, Chris.
Well, I did. I mean, I don't know what it is with you guys. Sometimes you start these things too late, and it is rather for not a lot going on and very little subplots. It's very deliberately paced, which I found challenging.
A lot of people walking into doors and down hallways.
Yeah, it's like you kind of get the feeling you could watch this movie at like 1.5 speed and it'd still be fine.
Yes, you're probably right.
But what it's got going, I mean, and again, I always try to like sort of put myself in the like what it must have been like in 1960 when this came out, and it looks great. I think it was really well shot. The Criterion transfers.
God damn, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Look at how fucking crisp this is.
I know.
It's so
deep
crisp.
Blacks and beautiful whites and great grays.
Anytime, I mean, the central, her visage, I mean, like it's on the poster, but I mean, it really is, it's an effective little.
It's creepy and it's amazing.
Creepy.
Yes.
It's inherently creepy. And anytime you see it, and then, and they're really smart about when they dip into, like, you get like a quick flash of her, like 1960s era effects makeup to see like what it looks like underneath. The scene you had a minute ago behind you, Scott, the surgery where they actually take the skin off of that woman's face. It's like some of that stuff I got to imagine like was pretty horrifying.
It's pretty queasy making.
I gotta wonder if it was just because of the technology that they had at the time or what, but the amount to which the skin being lifted off of the face looks like the mask that she's wearing is pretty spectacular. If that was found in the edit, then fucking good on them.
Yeah.
If they did that intentionally, even better on them. Like, because that to me was the moment that was the moment that the movie turned for me, of just like, this feels more than what I've felt it is up until this point.
It was maybe a little too much sweaty.
It's a bit of a slow start, but it's awesome when they finally reveal.
Actually, Jared, just start from the beginning, man. You got here late. Let's hear your thing.
Well,
it's a bit of a slow start, except for like
so on that level, I liked it.
It's cool that she dumps a body in the very beginning. I had seen this film before. I love this movie. I like how they take their time before they show you what he's really up to, and yeah, I guess this movie is kind of slow moving, but I think it's a bit, it's like a gothic, type of thing.
Very much, yeah.
And
you know what would have really helped with that? What would have helped with what Chris is talking about, with what it would have helped with the atmosphere, which would have helped with the movie overall, is if the music wasn't fucking terrible.
It's a bit of a carnival style score, unfortunately.
If they had good tense music for those scenes of people walking from place to place.
And also, this is the guy who did Lawrence of Arabia.
I know.
It's like you see that
he's amazing. Yeah.
What's her name? The picking up girls in Paris. It's like bum 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 bum. But it's like it's all
carnival. It's all carnival.
What's it? No, it's that show with Larry David. It's Larry David's show theme. Basically, it plays
The Curb. Yeah. But I still
and her waltz isn't much fucking better either.
Not much. It's a little more kind of atmospheric, but not much.
Yeah, but not much.
But I love the added. There's so many great things about this picture. I love the added element, which is behind Tad right now. But there's so many scenes where it's just barking dogs in the background, and you feel that strange tension, that strange. And they're always there. They're always present. That seems like sort of filmmaking that's beyond 1960.
This is a beautiful shot.
Yeah, and then finally we see
all the way back to the last Cage almost.
I agree.
Deep focus lenses.
Remember that one girl who?
The cinematographer invented the Shuften process, right?
Oh, it's Shuften. Yes,
a way to do.
It's the guy. It's Shuften. Yes.
Yeah,
he did that thing. And when the girl jumps out the window and kills herself, you hear the dogs howling in the background.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck. I mean, it's so well done.
The dogs really reminded me of the dogs, the experimental dogs on top of the life sciences building at Cal. You would just at night, you usually hear them barking.
Are you kidding? Jesus, no. That's not good.
Again, the mask, like the imagery in this picture is so sort of staggering. Like it cements itself into your brain. Yes. It's beautiful. It's grotesque. It's creepy. And I think that this is, like I said last week,
creepy hospitals.
When she lifts up the pearls to show the scar.
Yes.
This movie would be a great pairing.
I thought her
with,
head was going to fall off.
The Skin I'm In, because I think that actually
that for a second.
I think that Almodovar actually, I think his tribute to this movie is The Skin I'm In. I think that he's did his version of that.
I know we watched it a year or two ago.
Yeah,
it was my pick too.
It's not at all a remake, but it's definitely, if it's not, it's an homage of sorts, right? It's such a good double bill. If you ever want to,
plastic surgeon, I can't remember.
Yes, he's a plastic surgeon who's actually
and it's also
this guy,
and it's also the same. It's also the same kind of motivation where he lost someone. And he's trying to recreate them.
Yeah, it's almost the same film in a lot of ways. He's like also invented this new way of grafting skin that's all revolutionary.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say it if nobody else is. I was thinking about Face Off for about half of this movie.
That's also
especially with the fucking doves.
Yes.
Well, the biggest difference between this and The Skin I'm In is that there he's turning a man into a woman, and that's not the case here.
Yeah, that's a little more extreme.
She's not. You can imagine a world where she's dead and he's trying to do something like that.
Yeah, this could be Frankenstein as well.
Right. It's one step further than where he is. It's not much of a step, you know.
For some reason, it kept reminding me of Eric Powell's Powell and Pressburger's Peeping Tom.
Is that Michael Powell?
Oh shit,
Michael Powell.
Michael Powell.
You're talking about that first person one from the 60s?
Yeah.
That like changed. They contribute that to like one of the earliest slasher films of all time.
I want to
It
make
is,
that
as
movie.
far as I'm concerned.
This is one of the
and
films-
that's like one of the first movies that was ever done in first person,
yeah.
like ever.
There's Lady of the Lake or whatever,
This film, I thought it was actually like
which is Ray Milland. It's in the 40s. It's a Chandler novel, and it's all first person.
Holy shit, I gotta see that.
What's
Well,
this
it's also-
movie?
It's not
also
terrific,
Dark
but
Passage is
it's
first
really
person, isn't it?
it's important to watch. That's one of those movies that like watching that movie is
Well, I thought
something you
PB
just
Tom
need
was
to
the first
do.
one that did that.
So at the end of the day, though, like as much as I sort of struggle with the pacing of this movie and the sweaty doctor, maybe a little too much sweaty doctor, the last 7 minutes are like quintessential, like a good horror movie knows how to leave on a high note.
Yeah.
yes, it does.
Stab her in the neck, let the dogs out. Dogs
Dogs eat his face off.
I'm like that's what I'm like. That was worth it.
Yes,
It's also the
it pays off
happiest
really well.
hour and 20.
It's also the happiest dog mauling we've seen since John's space
Yeah.
movie.
I was thinking a little bit about that
Yeah.
scene in Ed Wood where he's got to like get attacked by the octopus. And I'm like,
Pull the string! Pull the string!
Yeah,
how much?
it was a nice
how much-
respect for doggies in this thing. I thought it was nice
Oh.
they got to get revenge at the end.
They
It's
did
kind of
Their
fun.
tails
cuts,
up.
'cause
their
I
I
think
know
tails
they're
are
so
up,
cute. I mean, it's like
They're
I
all
wanted to
happy,
win.
but they're like, you're supposed to be
No,
evil
I
right
think
now.
They're
they
licking that
speared
man to
bologna
death.
all over his face, and
Yeah.
it's a clever edit.
I think
With
I
how
think this
sweaty,
film missed-
with how sweaty he is through the whole movie, I don't think they needed to give those dogs any encouragement to lick his
No,
face.
no, he probably just licked the hell out of his face. He
No, but
licked
I
his face
appreciated
off,
the
basically.
eyeball for 1960 censors. Like they left the eyeball in. That was
Well, his eyes were like half out of his head
Yeah.
at the end of the last scene.
and that was why I was like, that's a horror movie. They
It
know
is.
that's a horror movie ending you remember.
That's right, and you did
Remember that
exactly.
ending long after I forgot.
Well,
No,
I
I think this
of,
film missed a great opportunity when they get the first girl and they cut her face off and put her on the daughter.
yeah.
I would have loved it if they showed up at the table with that person's face on. They didn't. They showed
instead of the mask.
instead of the man. Instead of they actually supposed to. She looks like her original self, but she had that straight eyebrows. Like they had that. I think her name was Martine. I think it was the girl that
she starts rejecting that.
yeah, the
rap.
person. If
That
she
was-
looked like the person that they abducted, that would have been so.
Yeah, if they just used the same actress.
Yeah, they use it. They didn't use it. That would have been a shame. It's a shame. I thought it was like a neat
And
way of
put a
doing it.
little effects on
The
the
thing is,
edges.
this film begs for a remake. It's pretty good, but it could be remade much better. You know.
Well, I think Almodovar.
You have to change the word.
kind of.
Almodovar kind of did it. He did.
Yeah.
He made this film better.
But I think this.
We also
this,
have face transplants now. Like that is
do.
a thing. And
My
oh,
wife
they do
was
it. They do it in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, dude.
this they do.
I like the part where they're showing her
The
rejection.
movie sucks, but yes.
They're showing her rejection
For burn
stills.
victims.
You see her
Except
face.
for fucking
Written
Johnny Depp
down.
is awesome in that movie. Dude.
He is. Oh,
Just
that's
gets fucked up the entire time.
He is. He's great. But the part where they're showing the rejection stills, like you show the date and her face getting more and more fucked up. It's like great.
Which is kind of like that scene in Young Frankenstein with the decomposing head.
It's freshly
And then it ends with Igor. He's just sitting there on the thing and he starts singing. Like,
Yeah.
All right.
I kind of put this movie in. I kind of put this movie in with like, I love these older. I mean, this is 60, but they're throughout the old years of cinema, black and white specifically, there were smaller movies. This is a little bit bigger than the ones I'm going to mention, but smaller movies that had this horror sort of bent that were really good, like Carnival of Souls comes to mind.
Absolutely.
Which
just
I
a couple
love
years later, right?
And actually, two decades before this, like Cat People comes to mind, which I adore, from 1942.
Also, Psycho, a couple years later.
Psycho comes to mind. No,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
same year as this.
Same year. Oh my God!
Same
This
year.
is the same year as
Right,
Psycho.
you're right.
60.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, there you
So
go.
I love these older sort of horror gothic black and white pictures that were out of the norm of what everyone was making at the time.
Me too. That's why I picked it.
M's a horror movie. M is
yeah. I mean,
M
well,
is a hell of a movie.
that could be considered the OG, I guess.
Actually, one of those days we're gonna.
I think Caligari would be, but yeah.
I wanted to pick M with Z.
Well, we got Z already, so
those are very different.
But
but
me to it, so I couldn't pick M and Z.
I'm going to the cards at this point.
The ending makes this glad I friggin' finally saw it.
I have to say, hold on. I have to say the music.
The music.
I'm so thumbs down on the music.
The music's a detriment. I'll give you that.
It's such a great film. Great film.
The film itself, the music. I'm sorry. Yeah, I can split my vote on this one. So there it is.
I give the music and the film.
Oh, there you go.
The music would be fine in a different movie.
The music didn't ruin the movie for me. It's a great movie.